What's up, everyone? Quentin Figueroa here with SlayerMint.com, and I would like to slow things down a bit today and talk about something kind of light and less controversial, and that is how poor people are addicted to being poor. Now, the same way all addicts make excuses, right, for what they're doing, poor people do the exact same thing. So let's explore that a little bit. Now, before we go any further, it's like, of course, if you're poor and you're happy, that's great. Being poor is not a bad thing. Being rich is not a good thing. It's everything's just a state of mind. So it's not at all bad to be poor. And if you're happy being poor, then good, because most people are unhappy no matter what they are. So that's awesome. And I'm not saying in any way it's bad to be poor. What I'm going to be talking about are the people that hate being poor, and they're jealous, and they play the victim, and they use it kind of as an excuse for what they do and where they are, the same way addicts do. That's what I would like to address in this, right? Because we have a lot of poor people who believe that they are poor because other people are rich, right? They take this kind of incorrect view that somebody hurt them, so that's why they're the way they are. Somebody else gained and they lost, right? They don't see wealth as a creation. They see it as like a set fixed amount, and if somebody has more of it, somebody has less of it. So that's obviously an incorrect view of how it works, but that's kind of a mentality behind a lot of poor people, right? They have this kind of victim mentality that bad things that happen to them, things that don't go right in their life, they're a victim. Somebody else is hurting them. They take responsibility away from themselves, and they put it on somebody else who is doing something bad to them. They don't take personal responsibility themselves, right? And what happens is they play this victim so long that they become used to it, right? It's no different than somebody who's, with alcohol abuse or drug abuse. They do something so long. They start drinking, so they drink for so long, it becomes like a part of their life where it's hard to let go now. It's like you make excuses so long that now when something happens to you, rather than the first thought being something like, how can I overcome this? The first thought is like, what did this person do to me? Why did they do that to me? Why would they hurt me? It's like you change the way you think. You become addicted to this poor mentality, right? No different than an alcoholic. As soon as a hardship happens or something, rather than working on your mental ability to overcome it, like your emotional abilities, you immediately just think, I need alcohol as a band-aid. I need to get drunk. I need to escape. And I mean this in like a very serious sense, because it's an addiction, and the same escape, this same mentality happens with poor people who escape kind of their problems and their challenges in the same way an alcoholic would, right? There's this addiction aspect, right? And when you confront an addict, like an alcoholic, when you confront them on their addiction, they're going to make excuses. That's the mentality of an addict, right? They'll say, well, I drink because it runs in my family. It's in my DNA. Or I drink because I had a rough childhood. So like, it's kind of, what do you expect? That's my environment. Or I drink because my parents drink. I drink because my friends drink. I drink because I'm poor. There's a litany of excuses, and addicts are always going to make excuses. They're always going to manipulate others and make others feel sorry for them. That is kind of how an addict works. That's the nature of an addict. And that's why addiction is in many ways a mental thing, because you make others feel guilty for you. You manipulate. It's this whole, avoidance of responsibility. You're making excuses. And poor people, they do the same thing, right? So if somebody is poor, they're poor because that's the environment they were born into. If they're poor, it's because their parents were poor, their friends are poor, or they had, bad stuff happen in their life. It's like they make the same excuses an alcoholic or a drug addict or any other addict is going to make. They're not going to say they're poor because they choose to be poor or because they practice the habits of being poor. They're going to say they're poor because of somebody else, because of some bad thing that happened to them, because of anything other than their own choice. The exact same thing happens with an alcoholic, any other addict. They're going to place the blame on something outside of themselves. I mean, all you have to do is look at this. It's super obvious, and you see it everywhere in like everything in life, not just poor people, not just addicts, everywhere. But if you look for it, you'll see it. So when I say that poor people are addicted to being poor, I mean it in the technical, literal aspect of the word addict. They are addicted to it. They've been doing it for so long. They built up that mental image in themselves that is them. It's become them. Rather than having thoughts of, say, abundance or production or anything that they want, they view it in the other way. They view limitation. They view struggle. They view victimhood. They have this whole illusion of reality that they've built up. The exact same thing that addicts do, right? So, and the same way that you have, so with most addicts, you have somebody who enables it, right? If you've ever watched the show Intervention, you get to kind of see these drug addicts, kind of how they operate and their mentality. And it's interesting because, I mean, if you watch it, I've watched it quite a few times, you see patterns almost immediately. Almost everybody has some enabler. They have somebody that enables them to be the addict, that enables them to be kind of this victim. So most drug addicts, they have a parent or a friend who's supporting them because, of course, it costs time and money to get drugs and alcohol and whatnot, and it ruins your life. I mean, if you abuse it, which all these people do. So you have somebody, though, that's kind of providing for this abuse that on your own you would not be able to necessarily support, right? So if you're just becoming an addict to alcohol or something like that, it becomes hard to function in society. But when you have somebody who's giving you money and providing you the alcohol and saying like, well, you kind of need it to survive, or, you know, you're struggling, you've been through a lot, this is kind of what you need, I need to help you, I feel guilty for not raising you right, blah, blah, blah. All these kind of excuses that the enabler gives them, the addict who's manipulating this provider is going to kind of take that, and they're going to it's going to allow for them, it's going to enable them to continue their addiction. It's going to basically support it. It's going to affirm it and tell them that what you are doing is okay, and here are more resources for that. And this same relationship happens with poor people. We just tend to see it more through the state and through government, right? So people are poor, the state gives them resources and says, you know what, you're poor, totally not your fault, you're not an addict, I'm going to give you resources and I'm going to supplement that. I'm going to allow you to continue that choice-making ability, that lack of self-responsibility, and I'm going to enable that. And look, of course, I'm not saying every poor person is this. I'm not saying there aren't disabled people and unfortunate people and crap like that. It's like, yeah, I get that. That's like first grade stuff. But a lot of poor people obviously are enabled through these means, and it is a choice, and they aren't choosing to better themselves, and they're taking advantage of a system. They're manipulating people, and it's so obvious, and they're doing the exact same thing addicts are doing. That's what I'm talking about. These poor people that are playing the victim and that are being enabled through wealth being transferred to them through the state and things like this. It's like if that never happened, poor people would have to stop being an addict and they'd have to find a way out. They'd have to change their mentality. They'd have to take personal responsibility rather than blame other things that have nothing to do with it. So, all you have to do is, work with some addicts and kind of study it, and you can see this type of stuff. I have experience working with addicts, and I kind of have read into the literature and stuff, like Al-Anon and different courses, and I've seen kind of what they say. And they talk about, like letting them hit rock bottom. They talk about how they need to choose to become better rather than you forcing them to do something. It's like it's all based around kind of personal responsibility, and it's all based around principles of self-help and things like this, which I've talked about. It's kind of obvious stuff, but people, they want to kind of mask it up and they want to cover things rather than to clearly see kind of the true culprit of what's going on. It's like, it's not that complicated if you read into how addicts think and how they operate, and you can see the same thing going on with poor people. And again, I'm not saying it's bad to be poor. I'm just showing how that mentality is the same as an addict, like alcohol or anything else. So that's why I'm saying poor people are addicted to being poor, right? An addict will never take personal responsibility, right? And until an addict takes personal responsibility, they will never overcome their addiction. So that is what I wanted to share with you guys. Thank you for listening, guys. If you like the videos, please comment, subscribe, and like them. And I will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.